Hello, welcome. Tonight is going to be a little bit easier for everything. So welcome. Let me know where you're coming in from. What let me know what's on your Saturday evening docket besides hanging here. What you're sipping on. I have a I had to. I have a whiskey and ginger beer cuz we're going to Canton. We are going to Canton, Massachusetts tonight. So, before I run the intro, if you're new here, welcome. I am Aurora. I am a law nerd. I have no legal training whatsoever. I just work for attorneys. That's all. So anything I say about the law is very much my opinion and things that I have just, learned and picked up along the way. In the description of my video, anytime I cover law stuff, I drop in the descriptions of my favorite creators that are a part of LawTube, lawyers who know a lot more than me, who are also covering these cases because, well, they're smarter than me and they're a great watch, and I enjoy them very much. And they generally can break down the law part of it better than I can. I've picked up a fair amount. The Patty Patagonia lawsuit is stretching things I have learned along the way. But this lawsuit, Karen Reed finally filed the lawsuit against the Canton Police Department and the Massachusetts State Police. Buckle up. It's a doozy. It says it's 87 pages. The complaint isn't actually 87 pages. But once I roll the intro, we're going to do a quick summary of all the things that have happened on the off chance that you are new to the Karen Reed saga that has been playing out for the last few years in Massachusetts. I will do my level best to do the super fast TLDR of the whole thing. But I should link my old channel because I do cover I think I've covered both trials. Anyway, it's a whole thing. But before I roll the intro, Aurora, do you have any linear thoughts in your head tonight? No. No, I do not. It is Saturday and nope, I don't have linear thoughts. We're just going to roll with it. I am going to try and have tonight be shorter than yesterday. One, cuz we may have thunder booms coming in and the dog does not handle those well. And two, because it's Saturday and I'm tired. So, and there's a bonus stream from last night that was actually it was a stream. Why is my hair doing that? Oh, yeah. Me, I'm going to wear my hair down tonight right before I stream. No, I'm not. So so over on this channel, we lead with kindness, we lead with facts. And we take into account this is one of the few lawsuits where normally when you read a complaint, you have to take it as true because that's what the court has to take it as. But this one is a little bit different because of a few different things. Partly because of the litigation that has been going on for years. Discovery has happened in all of the criminal proceedings, and then there's been just a whole boatload of other things happening. So, I'll try and do a bit of a summary on that. But if you like hanging out with us, if you're interested in building community, welcome. Go ahead and hit the like button, do all of the subscribing, notice bells, that kind of thing. When it pops up, go ahead and give it a watch at your convenience. I am live usually on Saturdays, and then it's always available on replay. And I should have it all set up so that when we have, chat going, chat is on replay as well. And yeah, all those things help the algorithm. Share it with your friends, especially if it's something that they like to do. As I say in the intro, we cover the we cover the pop culture and politics and court cases that happen to catch our interest over here. So, um, I try really hard not to call people names. Tonight we're probably going to fail at that because Proctor is a problem. Just he is a problem of a human, and we are gonna see that. So, I will say we do not dox over here. We don't diagnose unless we have the proper credentials and time to diagnose. So those are the sorts of things. I'm more about building community and having conversations and less about, weaponizing all of us to go do big things. I'm too lazy for that, and I encourage you to be too lazy for that as well. Kindness is key. And we're in June, so I also want to say happy Pride. I know the town that I am in, their Pride is happening tomorrow. And then there's just all the New York. If you have not seen the New York City Council ball that they had, 10 out of 10, loved seeing that. Um, and I thought that was a great way for celebrating Pride. So with that, without further ado, let me go ahead and roll the intro. Then we're going to do a quick TLDR on the Karen Reed everything. And then we're going to dive right into this complaint. So, because this is going to be a big one. So, intro. Welcome to Bark a Lot with the Aurora H. White. I'm a legal biller by trade, opinionated law and politics nerd by default. I'm here to break down the political, pop culture, and court headlines that we're all talking about. We value facts, thoughtful discussion, and salty language, so whether you're a fellow law nerd, a political junkie, or just looking for a little hope in today's crazy world, you're in the right place. Tap that subscribe button, pull up your soapbox, and let's go. Let's go. Okay. So, how did we get here? You may ask yourself. Well, I cannot remember the dates off of the top of my head at the moment, but in January, a few years ago, Officer John O'Keefe wound up dead through what seemed to be somewhat violent means and on the front lawn of a fellow police officer's yard or house. So John O'Keefe was a Boston police officer. The lawn he was on was they were that was the home of another Boston police officer. And they were going to a party with a bunch of other cops. The lead investigator on that case, former trooper Michael Proctor, um, determined that it was the girlfriend, Karen Reed, that had hit John O'Keefe with her car and then drove off. Except here's the thing, evidence and science don't back up that theory of the case, not even a little bit. So the Commonwealth of Massachusetts prosecuted her once, and that ended in a mistrial because, again, the science did not back that up. And then they immediately, as immediate as any court system can be, put her on trial again for murder. Only that time, and in that course, she gained a bunch of attorneys, and basically it was running the same case again, except the Commonwealth of Massachusetts brought in a former defense attorney, Hank Brennan, to prosecute the case, which was to this day a weird choice to me. And that time, by the end of that case, the jurors, several of them have come out and basically said, oh no, we believe she is factually innocent based on based on all the evidence that was provided. It wasn't just that the prosecution didn't prove their case. No. No. That's not what happened according to, well, everybody in my circles, and a huge chunk of the internet and all of that. In the course of all this, of course, Karen Reid loses her job and has spent the better part of, I think, the last, like, 3 or 4 years just fighting these cases. Somewhere between trial 1 and trial 2, I would have to look at a docket to actually get my dates right on that. The O'Keefe family sued Karen Reid for wrongful death. Now, if you're like, "Aurora, why did they sue if it was a mistrial and then an acquittal?" Well, O.J. Simpson. Remember when that happened and then, Nicole's family sued for wrongful death and they won in civil court even though he was acquitted in criminal court? That's why. So they sued Karen Reid for wrongful death. They've also sued the 2 bars, the Waterfall and McCarthy's. McCarthy's? Anyway, so they're all embroiled in that wrongful death lawsuit. I would not quote me on this, but somewhere in there, oh, there's also criminal cases and civil cases going on with Karen Reid and Aidan Carney. Aidan Carney is most commonly known as Turtle Boy on YouTube. And he is amongst the ones who really broke this case at the very beginning, and got eyes on Karen Reid's case when it wasn't a national thing. So, however you feel about him as a person or the reporting that he does, that was solid reporting. But it also made the Commonwealth of Massachusetts mad, and he doesn't always use tactics that I personally would agree with. So yeah, that has led him into some hot legal water. So there are lawsuits and stuff going on now. And then because of all this, we've been waiting for the moment where Karen Reid would sue the state on some level. And I have learned in all of this that there are waiting periods, presentment periods. I go check out any of the attorneys below because most of them, pretty sure EDB does a good breakdown of it. I'm pretty sure Peter Tragos at Lawyer You Know does a good breakdown of it, and I have not finished Runkle's stream on this, so I don't remember. But there's a period of time basically where I think the city or the town, the state entities can either just sit and wait and not do anything about it, or they can say, yeah, let's go. And they didn't, which gave Karen Reid's team more time to gather more information. While in the middle of all of these lawsuits being filed and things like that, Proctor, former trooper Michael Proctor, was fired, and him and his union, the police union, were filing to get his job back. And somewhere in there, he's fighting this. Somewhere in there, I can't remember if the prosecution or if it was from the civil litigation. I cannot remember now. But anyway, somebody was like, "Hey, can we get everything that's on Proctor's phone?" And the response was, "You can try, but he got a new phone." And he, you know, got a new phone and it deletes every 10 days or 5 days or 3 hours, whatever it was. So we don't think you're going to find much. um Here's the thing about iPhones. You can delete everything off of your phone, but if it's in your iCloud, if you don't go in and delete your iCloud, that's part of the whole deal. So Proctor may have changed phones and changed carriers, but he didn't delete his iCloud. So when they went for his iCloud, they got like 10 years of text messages, photos. It was a stupid amount of data that they received. There was a hearing a month or so ago about a bunch of folks in a bunch of different cases that Michael Proctor had worked on looking to get this information. Because they're all on the same side and they want to use it. And we're going to see why they want to use it. So, when that happened, when all that information was discovered, the union dropped Proctor, his attorney bounced. They did, in fact, just leave the termination as it was. And then a couple days ago, just as this police report was being, or this is not a police report, just as this lawsuit was being filed, Sergeant Good resigned from the Canton Police Department. Sergeant Good was one of the folks working the John O'Keefe case. Yeah. So that is where we are at now. And we are going to see some of the text messages that Sergeant Good and former Trooper Proctor sent back and forth to each other. A smidgen of this came up in Karen Reed trial number 1. Proctor was not called to the stand in Karen Reed trial number 2. And I think we're gonna see why. Also, this is just Karen Reed's case. Things that have also been affected by this, because while Karen Reed's case was going on, there was a tip-off to the FBI that said, hey, you might want to investigate the investigators here. And they started investigating the investigators. And they just kept finding things. Amongst the things found was, and I could not, it's been too long and I haven't done a separate timeline on this, but there is the case of Sandra Birchmore, who worked with this Explorer. It's a teen to adult pipeline for bringing folks up, kids who are in a bad space, instead of like scaring them straight, helping them to become cops. Unfortunately, from things we've learned from the Sandra Birchmore case, it seems far more nefarious, to quote Brennan, than that. And so Sandra Birchmore, unfortunately, was groomed for many, many years, and then by a man much older than her, who was one of the cops. And Birchmore lost her life, seemingly at the hands of Farwell. That's the cop's name. And when that happened, he was like, oh, clearly she did it to herself. And the Massachusetts State Police seemed to just run with that. Well, her name is in this filing. So I'm real curious as to what we're going to find out when we get to Proctor and Good's conversations about the Birchmore case, because that has not gone to court yet, I don't think. So it would seem that we have a systemic problem with the Massachusetts State Police and the Canton Police Department. It would seem that Yannetti, in his opening statements of Karen Reed Trial 1, was in no way being hyperbolic. I mean, a little hyperbolic because lawyer, but not really being hyperbolic. So with that, let me swoop and plug in the computer so I don't lose track of the battery. And then we're going to go through this lawsuit. It's not as long as it looks. It looks longer than it is. Okay. Share screen. Share screen. Window. There. Aurora, you didn't swoop yet. No, I did not. Swoop. I'm here. I didn't disappear. I am here. I am trying to take care of plugs where plugs need to be and things like that. Oh no. Hang on, guys. You know what? We're going to swoop again because I am having technical difficulty. That's a it's not really difficulty, but yeah, swoops. It was a tangle, not difficulty. That's what it was. All right. So we can skip over some stuff with the complaint, but now I have to ask. No, Aurora, don't try and do any. Wait. Oh, that makes it worse. Okay. Me trying to. That makes it better. All right, let's try that. Trying to do it so that I don't always have to look at my other screen to see things. Now this means I don't think chat is hidden. I don't know. We're gonna give this a try. So, oh, but that doesn't work that way. Okay, there we go. I've got this. So this was filed on June 4th. Complaint. The introduction. Also, the writing in this filing is top notch. The writing is just 10 out of 10. The not guilty verdict in Commonwealth versus Karen Reed on June 18th, 2025, did not merely end a wrongful prosecution. It shone an unflinching spotlight on something the Massachusetts State Police and the town of Canton Police Department has spent years trying to conceal: an embedded culture of bigotry, misogyny, systemic failures, and institutional rot at the very core of both organizations. As a result of this entrenchment, Ms. Reed now files this action against MSP and CPD for their negligent hiring, training, and supervision of biased and corrupt police officers whose actions violated her constitutional rights and caused her immense harm. At the heart of Ms. Reed's claims lies a distressing narrative, one not just about individual rights, but about fundamental principles upon which our society is built. Through this action, the MSP and CPD will now be forced to answer for their police officers' unlawful conduct against Ms. Reed that is set forth in detail below, but also for the insidious culture of bigotry and misogyny that fostered such unlawful conduct and has likely resulted in other unconstitutional criminal investigations in which countless unknown others have also suffered. On that particular note, I recommend going to watch Trial 4 on Netflix. Because yes. Okay, good. No. I just Aurora, don't try to hit the right. Don't. I tried to hit a button, it did not work. Indeed, MSP and CBD have avoided facing this very moment for years, but it's now time for the long-awaited transparency and accountability owed to the citizens of the Commonwealth. Former MSP Detective Michael Proctor, and former, as of 2 days ago, CPD Sergeant Sean Good are virulent bigots whose hatred for anyone and everyone different from themselves permeates their every action. They are not officers who occasionally voiced an offensive remark. Offensive doesn't even begin to cover what we're going to see. They are men whose written and recorded communications sent to one another and to a circle of like minded friends over the course of a decade establish entrenched and unrepented hatred for women, Black Americans, Asian Americans, Jews, Hispanics, Arabs, and gay people. Their unfitness for any position of public trust was not subtle. It was extensively documented and, as set forth below, knowable to MSP and CPD long before either agency assigned them to investigate and prosecute Ms. Reed. Proctor's and Good's involvement at the outset of the investigation into the death of John O'Keefe invariably and irredeemably contaminated it in every respect, as depicted in thousands of written and audio messages that the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office has thus far hidden from public view, and far from the inclusive values that both organizations publicly claim to pursue. Procter and Good secretly and proudly wore badges of hate. Footnote: multiple copies of thumb drive containing a selection of the audio recordings referenced herein are attached as Exhibit 1. I do not have Exhibit 1. After reading through this, I'm not going hunting for Exhibit 1. I lost my place. Badges of hate. I found it again. Indeed, bigotry guided their every act as law enforcement officers for years, but such conduct remained disguised by the uniforms they wore and obscured by the support and encouragement they received inside the walls of the very institutions designed to prevent such injustice and protect the public. Yeah, being all of those things would cloud your judgment when investigating crimes. For the MSP and CPD, who hired, trained, supervised, and observed these two for years, Proctor's and Good's hateful and despicable views were not only a part of their own daily vernacular, but were woven through the fabric of their organization's culture and everyday conversations. I'm going to warn you, I missed a redaction. I apologize. I've tried to redact everything. But as you can see, it was I I was doing it quickly and I missed one. My apologies. Here are some of the quotes from their conversations. After telling Good about a multi-car accident, this one makes me so mad. After telling Good about a multi-car accident in Canton, quote, actually take your time. I saw a N-word was involved, so I wouldn't rush if you're working. Let them die. I really hope that they are okay, but I also really hope there's an accident report. And the courts of Massachusetts are about to get real backed up. From defense attorneys to litigators taking them to court. It is gonna be backlog. That was Michael Proctor. Also Michael Proctor. My new VP is a giant malignant, and he cares about spelling, apparently. I pray to. This is so weirdly specific and also so weirdly fucked up. Brace yourself. We are not going to be reading through all of these because they are too awful. But this one is so weird and weirdly specific. My new VP is a giant malignant spelling. Believe that's an N-word. I pray to it's either the N-word or see you next Tuesday. Well, see you next Tuesday. That's what that one is. I pray to the heavens that some fucked up insect from the Amazon crawls up her vagina, hatches eggs, and the litter kills her by eating her from the inside out. Yeah. Sean Good, biggest see you next Tuesday. Mm-hmm. Proctor, referring to his then girlfriend's warning, there's a lot of not consent and definitely criminal behavior in the following sentence. Referring to his then girlfriend's anus. Quote, I can't even fucking get near that thing. I make every effort possible. I wait till she's asleep and I try to get at it. I try every effort possible. I try to get her hammered. I can't get anywhere near it. It's starting to piss me off. It's not cool. Proctor. Proctor with the non-consent. Great. Then it gets worse if that's possible. It continues to get worse. Michael Proctor, quote, went into Canton this morning to get a transcript and saw more slurs in 10 minutes than the 4 years I spent there combined. Everywhere I looked, there were creatures running around. I'm not even saying that I can on YouTube. I'm not. It's disgusting. Wanted to ask the woman in the guidance office, where were all the white kids? You can fill in the blanks. Where the fuck did all these... A version of a slur I didn't even know existed. That's I learned things in this lawsuit that I never wanted in my head. Then there's more. Michael Proctor. That lady was an absolute slur, rag slur. Who had it in for me? Mm-hmm. Yeah, anytime you see the black dots here, it's slurs. It's slurs. And while I mean just the racism, the misogyny, all of it, I thought they might have been exaggerating. No. Mm-mm. No, we get things like Sean Good saying, quote, she's a Jew, so death puts out. Or Michael Proctor, quote, deport their asses. I don't care if they are here legally or what their excuse was. Fucking deport those sand and N-word. Yeah. These are the guys in charge of policing. Yeah, they're police officers. So that's gonna color how they handle cases, I would think. It goes on with such gems from Michael Proctor, such as, quote, Detroit should be destroyed along with places like Flint, Michigan. They are breeding grounds for slurs to run wild. End quote. This is the one that we heard and referenced by a defense attorney who has a client. Yeah, this is a very good reminder. Don't get stopped in Boston or Canton. I would say if you are driving through Massachusetts, if you have a white guy that can be the driver, yeah, everybody else get in the passenger seat. Probably pretend to take a nap. That would be my recommendation is and I don't care if you've done I don't care if you are, especially if you are innocent. Actually, especially if you are innocent in Massachusetts and particularly Norfolk County and Canton, although it seems to go through some other places, Boston. Have an attorney, just call an attorney. What attorney first, deal with everything else after. Yeah, it is really sad to say this, but um until this gets handled, I would say that yes, these guys are not working there anymore, but the allegation in this complaint is that this is part of the culture. So, and the district attorney hasn't helped with that much. There is a DA election, there is a district attorney election happening now. So, maybe rather than looking at the Maine Senate race, if you are in Massachusetts, particularly if you are in this area, uh, get your butt to the forums where the DAs that are running are talking to people, because this is a culture that needs to change from the inside out, and it seems rotten, like incredibly rotten. So, I mean, we've all kind of anybody who's lived up in these New England areas, we've all kind of known to a certain extent that this sort of crap was going on. Not necessarily to this extent. So, if you are a minority, basically, if you are anything other than a straight white man or can pass as a straight white man, if you can get a straight white man to drive you through this part of the world, I would do that so that you don't get pulled over. Um, and I hate that. I hate that. I hate that, because that's not how it should go at all. It's just not. Um, and with that, this I believe I left it with this horrific. This is why. This is why. To quote Michael Proctor, quote, "It should be punch a N-word in the face." Let me try and read that again. I got so mad. Yeah. It should be punch an N-word day in Canton today out of retribution. I know I slur, you see, blast it in the face. That was his attitude. More slurs? More slurs. More gems of terrible thinking, such as America sucks, Hitler was really onto something, then the fucking US had to step in and ruin it. Mhm. I'm real glad he's fired. Indeed, throughout the course of their friendship, which dates back to high school, Good and Proctor bonded over the warped prism through which they both viewed their surroundings and the individuals they encounter in their personal and professional lives. These distorted yawn snuck up on me, sorry. Um these distorted worldviews were shaped by unimaginable hatred and tolerance through which they dehumanized others, often wishing violence or death on them, demeaning them, or even suggesting planting evidence on them to cause them harm. That's a big part of the Karen Reed case, so that's going to be interesting. In written and recorded audio conversations beginning in 2013, the year MSP hired Proctor, and when Good was already an officer with CPD, and for almost a decade later, pardon me, I don't know where that yawn came from. Sorry, chat. Sorry, I know those are catching. These two law enforcement officers referred to community members whom they encountered as all the little black dots. All the things. I'm not ick. Proctor and Good believed these folks were polluting the neighborhoods in which they lived and worked and where they eventually served. They did more than just subscribe to and act in conformance with their bigotry. They actually memorialized in writing and voice messages. I think I'm yawning because I'm so horrified by this. And I hate even coming close to these words. I think that's what's happening. They actually memorialized in writing and voice messages to their like minded friends. Not a few communications, thousands of them. They discussed sharing private nude pictures of women and intentionally ejaculating on women while they slept. There's a. Remember that other story that broke? I feel like these guys were in that chat room. Yeah. I wonder how long Proctor or Good is going to remain married after this, but who knows? Who knows? Yuck. Few protected classes, community members, or public figures were spared. Good wrote nasty things about the mayor and the governor. This one is odd to me on so many levels. New England Patriots owner Robert Kraft is a terrible see you next Tuesday. What I'm not finishing it because yeah, that odd. I don't understand how they got there. Yeah, they have families. They have wives, they have kids. Yeah, they do. I don't know. I know Proctor is married. I don't know about Good. I don't know how long Proctor's gonna stay married after this, but I don't know. Put simply, they were then and are now completely and unquestionably unfit to hold positions of authority with MSP and CPD, much less to play important roles, or in Miss Reed's case, the primary role in homicide investigations. And despite that, CPD had received, reviewed, verified, and analyzed these same messages nearly a year ago. Sergeant Good remained employed with full rank as a sworn police officer by the CPD until 2 days ago when they were alerted. A side note, when they were alerted this was coming. Kind of like how all the phones got rehomed just before the order came down that they were going to need to save the phones. Like that. On Pardon me, I do not know what is wrong. On January 29th, 2022, the MSP and CPD unleashed these two misogynist bigots on Ms. Reed to work on the conflicted and corrupt investigation into the death of Mr. O'Keefe. It did not take long to trigger their hatred and target Ms. Reed. Indeed, Proctor, Good, other police officers, and their respective organizations understood the assignment once their fellow cops and friends, Brian and Nicole Albert, Matthew and Jennifer McCabe, and Brian Higgins, referred to as House defendants in Ms. Reed's pending federal court action, falsely reported that Mr. O'Keefe, quote, never went inside the house. End quote. Even though his face was battered and bruised, he had dog bites and scratches on his arm, and he had a severe laceration on the back of his head that could only have come from a backward fall onto a rigid surface in the house rather than a flat front lawn. Law enforcement began immediately targeting and framing the female outsider, Ms. Reed, as MSP's assigned lead investigator, and without knowing any more about Ms. Reed than she was an outsider and a female, Proctor openly exposed his ossified prejudice when he described her to his group of chat buddies as, I didn't get to those redactions, R-word. Whack job. With no ads that leaks poo. We heard this in court. It was the one thing I appreciated Judge Cannoni doing. These are your words? Yes. Say them with your full chest. I'm paraphrasing. Immediately after Ms. Reed's arrest, Good made the same type of sexualized, dehumanizing comment about Ms. Reed's medical conditions and physical appearance that he and Proctor peddled in the hallways of their organizations on a daily basis. Quote, Jesus, every girl will want a brain tumor, multiple sclerosis, colitis if you can look like that in yoga pants after killing your boyfriend. Karen Reid. I'm going to pause here for a second. I'll get back to the document in a minute, but should you ever see this, I believe I speak for many other portions of the internet, especially I think I speak for at least a few other law nerds as well as myself that no one would have an issue if you rocked into court one day, um, if you rolled up to court and had yoga pants on, because I know, like, you're gonna have a killer blazer and just top notch. I would encourage, if it work out, I'm just saying, your friends and fans on online, folks who would think that you're doing everything you ought to be doing, and we're super happy that they apparently messed with the wrong girl. Given the yoga pants thing, I mean, if you showed up into to a deposition wearing yoga pants and a rockin' blazer, cheers. Cheers to you, my friend. Okay, back to the document. Meanwhile, as Good pondered Ms. Reed in yoga pants, Proctor seized Ms. Reed's phone and launched immediately into a search for naked pictures of her. This came up in trial 1, only to report back to his colleagues and friends, disappointingly, no nudes so far. But as he wrote to others as the investigation began, he hoped that she ended her own life. I'm paraphrasing because MSP and CBD's investigative approach was born out of Procter and Good's perverse and depraved pattern of signaling out and vilifying an outsider while protecting the blue line and their families. This was, of course, made more palatable by dehumanizing Ms. Reed. The writing in this document, by the way, is just 10 out of 10. With the help of Good and CBD, Proctor and his colleagues at MSP, including his direct supervisor, Yuri Buchanek, who testified in both trials, conducted a fundamentally conflicted and corrupt investigation where the goal was to pin it on the girl, and which included rampant violations of policies, procedures, and ethical rules. Wild deviation from standards and norms, yes. For example, and as described further below, despite overwhelming evidence that Mr. O'Keefe was inside the house at 34 Fairview Road, they did not search the home for blood, fingerprints, or DNA evidence. The house was neither processed nor photographed by a forensic criminalist. Indeed, the investigators did not even walk into the crime scene house until a week later, and then only for a pro forma visit and brief interview of Nicole Albert. No effort was made to secure evidence from the Alberts' German Shepherd, even though Mr. O'Keefe's body was found in the front yard with fresh and obvious dog bites and scratches on his right arm. Nor did Proctor, Buchanek, or their MSP colleagues conduct any physical examination of the House defendants or attempt to seize their phones. The investigators did not attempt to secure the crime scene, document evidence, collect biological material, videotape, or record video or record interviews, take DNA control samples, geolocate digital devices at the scene, collect electronic devices, secure surveillance footage, create a crime scene log, or maintain even the most basic chains of custody in accordance with well established investigative protocol. Uh-huh. Pretty much the worst episode of Law and Order shows this better than what they did. Worse yet, with the help of others at both MSP and CPD, Proctor and Buchanan manufactured evidence to ensure that Miss Reed was blamed for Mr. O'Keefe's death, intentionally diverting attention away from Proctor's friends and fellow law enforcement officers. This included planting evidence at the scene on Mr. O'Keefe's clothes and on Ms. Reed's vehicle to support the House defendant's false narrative that Ms. Reed struck Mr. O'Keefe with her vehicle, notwithstanding that the investigators knew Mr. O'Keefe's injuries were inconsistent with a motor vehicle strike and consistent with a physical altercation and dog attack. Among other failures, MSP's and CPD's delegation of power and authority to those as biased, corrupt, and bigoted as Proctor and Good led to Ms. Reed's being wrongly accused of homicide for 3.5 years and subjected to suspicion, 2 arrests, 2 prosecutions, and public trials, and public condemnation. Indeed, with the exercise of Aurora, try to read that properly. Indeed, with the exercise of ordinary care, both MSP and CBD would have known that Proctor, Good, and others were unfit for service from the beginning. Incredibly, Proctor himself acknowledged this fact in 2017. After 4 years on the job, telling his friends, quote, "No idea how I passed the background." "Neither do we, sir. We don't know either." Now, back to the document. Now, after being twice acquitted of all charges relating to Mr. O'Keefe's death, Ms. Reed brings this action to recover for and address MSP and CBD's actions, inactions, and negligent failures to ensure that justice was sought and served in the aftermath of January 29th, 2022. To be clear, however, this complaint transcends Ms. Reed's personal and actionable grievance. Rather, it is a clarion call for reform and accountability. This is for people like me. By the way, this paragraph, this is for all of us content creators, because this is a delight to read. I mean, the facts are garbage and I hate them, but this is so well done. Rather, it is a clarion call for reform and accountability, cloaked with the emblem of authority. MSP and CBD and their employees, Proctor, Good, and others, betrayed their sworn commitment to uphold the law, I suspect in more ways than one, given some of those text messages. Their prejudices undermine our very democratic principles in wielding the great force of government over those who are vulnerable and powerless. MSPs and CBD's cultures of intolerance, hidden from the public, but in plain sight within these organizations, cannot stand unchallenged. MSP and CBD are culpable and must confront the consequences of their institutional negligence. And then this we don't need to do. This is who is suing whom and why and where. And the incorporated facts, which is things that, we've already read in a lot of these. Let's see. By January 29th, so this is additional facts. By January 29th, Proctor and Good, both inveterate bigots, had long-standing and deeply held biases against women, as well as almost every other protected class of people other than white, male, non-Jewish police officers. They got real specific. Everybody but them. Procter and Goods is clear. Procter's and Goods' clear willingness and tendency to dehumanize, judge, and evaluate people and circumstances based on their hatred and biases significantly contributed to their willingness to embrace the narrative provided by the House defendants and target Ms. Reed, leading to the destruction of her career, her financial stability, and her very freedom, as well as the emotional and physical harm caused by 2 years-long prosecutions and trials for a crime she did not commit. Procter's and Goods' reservoir of vituperation. We looked this up on another stream, and it has not landed in my head yet. Fed by their staggering prejudices and the extent to which they were willing to pass judgment on others based solely on gender, race, religion, or sexual orientation, are apparent from each other's contributions to the cesspool of abject hatred reflected in their group chats and email chains with their friends beginning in 2013. Below is a selection of those messages. Also, I do need to pause and go back to read the footnote. Originally, Ms. Reed attempted to file all of her affirmative claims against all parties, including the town of Canton and Massachusetts State Police, in the one action she filed in Bristol County Superior Court on November 17, 2025. That pleading contains all of the alleged facts sufficient to establish all claims against all parties. However, the town of Canton Police Department and Massachusetts State Police refused to waive the 6-month presentment period. And by the time the presentment period expired, the House defendants had removed Ms. Reed's Superior Court complaint to federal court, where it is now pending. So they split it off. They could have done this all at once. But the House defendants were like, nah, boo, we're going to federal court. But what this also means is they had more time to dig through all the things they already had. So there was that. Pardon me, big yawn. Don't know why. All right. Below is a selection of those messages. I need a sip of whiskey before we continue. This is a good time. Oh, where's my mouse? This is a good time to pull this up. And we're worried about Blattner. This is absolutely insane. Yeah, these guys are bringing the full weight of the. Well, they were bringing the full weight of the state down on actual people every day. Like in person, and yeah, we're about to see what we want to talk about vetting. Let's maybe look at how we deal with police officers in Massachusetts, probably everywhere. Let's just. So here are some of the additional facts. Even during MSP's hiring process, Michael Procter cannot contain his bigoted views. On February 26, 2013, Procter wrote to his friends, "Hey, dickheads, just wanted to give you two a heads up that you guys may get a call from a state trooper named Scott Cooper who was doing my background check. Don't know who far back they are going to go with this stuff, but didn't want to have this guy catch you off guard." I mean, for background checks and stuff, I don't think I ever told anybody what might happen. I mean, references for a job, I'm like, here are the references I give you. And then I tell the references, hey, I put you down as a reference. You might be getting a call. Background checks, particularly for police officers, should be kind of different. Proctor's friend responded, quote, "No problem, but what are we supposed to say? Last time the BPT, Boston Police Department lady, was grilling me for exact dates as to when and how long you lived in Brighton, how we paid rent, to who, etc. Anything specific we should be aware of," end quote. Proctor responded, "That lady was an absolute slur who had it in for Bear, referring to himself in the third person by his nickname, Bear, in his friend chat group. Talked to this guy for half an hour today, and I would be shocked he pulled the same shit as her just from how she acted with me on the phone. Sir, I don't think she was the one pulling shit. Just I I have questions. I have questions for her, but I don't think she was the one pulling shit. No. Apparently, MSP did not, quote, pull the same shit as the Boston Police Department, who did not hire him during these interviews because MSP hired Proctor. It hired him at the time Proctor was constantly sharing countless messages with his friends and other law enforcement officers that illustrate these extreme and aggressive prejudices and biases he held against women, people of color, the LGBTQ community, and others. Proctor's views even polluted his thinking about MSP's hierarchy and leadership. Right. I'm not reading that because I don't need anybody else to clip it. Nope. Much of Proctor's aggression and hatred, however, was directed at women. In fact, from time of his hire at MSP through the time he began investigating Ms. Reed, Proctor shared countless messages with his friends about his perspectives on women. We're also not going to go through these. You can read them if you wish. You can pause and go through and read them if you wish. Nope. There's Proctor has a problem with consent. And a real problem with enthusiastic consent. So, no. This is there are things like discussing needing a roofie or something. That's a crime, sir. I know you just are a law enforcement officer and or were and think you just enforce when the law when other people appear to be breaking the law, but you're not allowed to break the law. Like you're not that's not how that works. Um yeah, there again real issue with consent and former trooper Michael Proctor. Former trooper Michael Proctor, ladies, you know how somewhat frequently we are told that when you get pulled over by a police officer and you don't know why and they don't tell you that the recommended thing to do, let me back up and clarify something. This is for white women generally in better neighborhoods because unfortunately because of idiots like this is both good advice and also is part of the whole like problem. um yeah, so if you are able to do this and if you trust your police department, I guess is the bigger thing. Like if you trust the entity as a whole entity, I would suggest doing this. um I'll give you 2 options, but if you are, like, out on the road alone, get pulled over by an officer, by cop, you're not really sure why, you can certainly go ahead and call the police department to find out if this has been called in or something like that, like if this is legit. And if it is, you can ask them to follow you to the police station. You can drive yourself to the police station. Recommended. Alternatively, you can sit in the car, and if you are uncomfortable, I would recommend having an attorney that you can call in that situation. Just to have them on the phone with you, if nothing else. Because Proctor has such an issue with consent, it would not surprise me if we find out that he used his badge more than just a little inappropriately. Lots of returning to the document. I'm skipping a lot of this because we don't need this. We've already read that one. We've already gone over some of these. Talks about wishing that we still enslaved humans, which is a wild thing. And that is a sentence that can't even go into my head. It's so wrong. Everything you see with the black dot is definitely a slur and not something that should be used in any company unless you're taking the word back for yourself. That is nope. Nope, not a word that should come out of your face. Yeah, there's just it is available on the internet. I'm gonna skip through this one because it's getting late, and two because I can't look at this many. Feel free to pause as I have been scrolling. Um, but it's a lot. It's just a whole lot. The one about punching certain groups of people in the face. All slurs have shrubs between their legs. Okay. This is a wild thing to put in a text message from Michael Proctor. I haven't shot anyone, but I did pull a N-word over today for tossing a cigarette out the window. I'm guessing that's not the only time that happens, so yeah. Talking about bringing back slavery again. Yeah. Yeah. No. Mm-mm. Oh. Oh, yeah. Discussing putting people back into concentration camps. Which also makes me kind of go, Proctor, we're already doing that. Why don't you go work for them? I mean, please don't, because I'd like to see you behind bars, but also, yeah, yep. In addition to these horrific statements, which is an understatement, indicating the extent to which he believed those with backgrounds and characteristics similar to him were superior to others, women, non-white. Proctor also wasn't shy about his other proclivities that made him patently unfit for service, including that more than once Proctor discussed planting coke on people and shoving a nightstick up someone's ass. When I say that anybody in Massachusetts who had Michael Proctor on their case, particularly if you were not a straight white dude, I'm guessing you're calling your attorney right now. And I would. I would. And Sergeant Good wasn't any better. Nope, he was not any better. He talks about uh, this is one of Sean Good's texts. Wait, she's sending you nudes? Send them. If Lisa would let me see her cans and actually take a photo of them, I would send them. We are family here. The other thing is, ladies, if you have come in contact with these men, really in any capacity, but particularly an intimate one, I might call your doctor. I would definitely call your doctor. You might want to get some testing done for your own safety. Um, the complaint goes on to say he also displayed the same racial and religious supremacist viewpoints as Proctor, which, like his misogyny, impacted how he viewed the members of the public he encountered on a regular basis as a police officer. Among others, Good sent these messages while he was a CPD officer. Uh-huh. The yeah. Um no. Nope. Not not reading this. Not reading this. This is I they both of them have a thing going on about Anne Frank, which is wildly confusing to me. Um, Good also shared similar disdain for homosexual members of the community in Canton and elsewhere, referring to them repeatedly as, I'm not saying it, like Proctor, slurs, more slurs. Just when you thought we were out of slurs, more. Like Proctor, Good exhibited more in these messages than just his bias and hate. He also shows that he lacks the basic discretion and neutrality required of a police officer deputized to protect and serve all members of the community, regardless of skin color, ethnicity, gender, religious beliefs, and or sexual orientation. As just one example, in 2022, as an 18-year-old veteran of CPD, Good shared his views in writing on Sandra Birchmore, a young woman who tragically died the year before in Canton and whose death was initially ruled done by her own hand until federal authorities discovered that multiple officers from neighboring town Stoughton's police department had been sexually abusing Miss Birchmore when she was a minor. After federal authorities investigated, they charged a former Stoughton police officer with her murder, and her death is now classified as a homicide at the federal level. The Norfolk County District Attorney's Office early this year changed the death from by her own hand to undetermined. Keep in mind, ladies and gentlemen, it came up twice in the Karen Reed trial that there were text messages where Proctor claimed that he could get the medical examiner to put down what he wanted as the cause of death. So that. Against this backdrop, Good told his friends that chick was borderline our word, referring to the victim. Referring to the victim. That they were not investigating her death until the FBI was investigating them. It goes on to say Good also helped his friends avoid repercussions for what appears to have been their regular practice of driving drunk. Quote, sobriety checkpoint on 138 by the trail side tonight. Please stay away tonight. Can't help you if you get caught. Too many troopers and Milton PD. Keep this info between us. Sure. He apparently relished his ability to use his institutional power, authority, and access to illegally obtain information about women he encountered in his daily life, writing in 2015, haha, can't wait to look this. See you next Tuesday, up tonight at work. Mhm. Yeah, that's gross. MSP and CPD knew or should have known about Proctor's and Good's bigotry. I'm gonna skip this part, because this is more legal. This is more legal. Um, but I will there are some bits in it, that we do need to go over. It goes over their connection with John O'Keefe and the Alberts, um, and that Proctor made no secret of his bias against Ms. Reed, demonstrating clear prejudice against her from the outset. Um, where's that line? There it is. Helpful right to the end. CPD then permitted Good to resign 2 days before the filing of this complaint rather than firing him and thus saving him from the reputational and financial implications of being terminated for cause. So basically, they found out this was coming and they said, "Why don't you retire now? You'll get to keep your pension." I'm assuming. And we just deal with this. Um Yeah, Buchanan, this goes into the testimony of Buchanan where he claims that it was that Trooper Proctor had the highest integrity. No, he didn't. No. Other times, so we're skipping ahead a little bit because this came up in trial. Both trials, actually, for Karen Reid. Um, Other times, the MSP simply looked the other way. For example, in February 2024, 4 months before Ms. Reed's first trial, the MSP was aware that they had a problem specifically related to Ms. Reed's case. The Department of Justice had begun investigating the investigators, and on February 1st, questioned Proctor in a grand jury proceeding about text messages he wrote in which he called Ms. Reed as "see you next Tuesday," among other bigoted comments in the the Department of Justice had found. Sorry, I skipped ahead and interrupted myself. Proctor was also questioned about his texts at 11 p.m. on January 29th, 2022, that House defendant Brian Albert would escape scrutiny in the investigation because, quote, "he's a Boston cop too." We remember those. I remember those. Further, Proctor was confronted at this grand jury about texts from Julie Albert to his sister, Courtney Proctor, asking to give Proctor a gift for some implied favor he did for the Alberts during their interviews on the case. On February 4th, 2024, Proctor had a meeting and told the highest level of leadership at the MSP, recent Colonel John E. Mon, recently retired, Lieutenant Brian Connors, recently retired, shocker, and Major Leonard Coppenrath, active, about his testimony to the Department of Justice, including his text messages. They did not terminate him, did not immediately ask for his phone, sorry, and did not immediately investigate his bigotry. They knew it existed and where to find it, but they didn't want to, at least until Miss Reed's trial was over, indicating a much bigger systemic problem here. Indeed, they tried to hide it from Miss Reed and the public despite initiating an internal affairs investigation in early March 2024 before the jury in Ms. Reed's first criminal trial was even impaneled. It was not until Ms. Reed's defense counsel found out about these messages and then used them during the public trial that MSP concluded it couldn't ignore this any longer. It was a big kerfuffle during trial one. MSP proceeded to falsely claim that it only became aware of the messages during the defense's cross examination and finally terminated Proctor. I want to know what other discovery they have on that. Um, IA launched a probe led by Lieutenant Kevin Dwyer to investigate Proctor's lewd text messages regarding Ms. Reed, the MS regarding Ms. Reed. The MSP inexplicably assigned to non-OPIA troopers, Major Benson and Captain Barrios, to perform cursory and brief interviews of the Proctors and Alberts, inquiring about their personal relationships with one another. The Proctors and Alberts were not confronted with any text or social media posts depicting their decades-long family-like bond. No outside witnesses were interviewed, no cell phones were seized, no evidence was presented. It was not just reasonably foreseeable, but nearly certain that MSP and CBD's failure to use ordinary care in selecting to whom they would impart the power would result in members of the public being targeted and severely impacted by officers and troopers' elemental shortcomings. Put differently, the biased and corrupt investigation that harmed Ms. Reed was the natural consequence of MSP and CPD hiring and promoting biased and corrupt law enforcement officers. In line with their barely concealed willingness to dehumanize and condemn people, coupled with their readiness to ignore or overlook objective evidence, Procter and Good began the investigation against the female outsider with bias and prejudice fueled by their bigotry. Yep. This is more specifically, who are they going after? I do want to pull this up. This is not your boring run-of-the-mill corruption, but completely disgusting, despicable behavior by a couple of sad humans that should be put away for a very long time. Yeah, the discovery is going to be insane. This is more summary legal. This is important to the lawyers, but it's not important to us. I mean, it will be important to us, but this is more important to the lawyers. This gets into the planting of evidence and other things like that. As Greg Connor, a 25-year-old veteran prosecutor in that office who is now seeking the role of district attorney, recently said of the Commonwealth's murder charge, quote, "The reach exceeded the grasp," end quote. And I quote, "I don't think there was another DA office in Massachusetts that wanted to prosecute Karen Reed," end quote. Which leads me to more questions. Counts. This is outlining the, exactly what they're going after. I'm going to skip through this. How they breach their duties. These are all things that are going to get argued in court. More than just the narrative. So, like, that front part is the narrative. These are more the bullet points of what the court is going to care about. I'm trying to get to civil conspiracy. So these are all the counts that they are suing under. They want a jury trial. For all of these counts, though, wait, there we are. Prayer for relief. Wherefore, this is what do they want? So here's all the wrongdoing. Now, what do they want? Money, because civil. But wherefore Ms. Reed respectfully requests that the court grant her the following relief. A, enter judgment in her Try that again, Aurora. Enter judgment in her favor and against each relevant defendant on each count of this complaint. B, award her damages in an amount to be calculated at trial, along with pre- and post-judgment interest, costs, and expenses. That is every cost that has been incurred. Basically, this is her trying to get her money back that they effectively stole from her by wrongfully prosecuting her. That's what we're looking at here. C, award her reasonable attorney's fees incurred in connection with this litigation. And D, grant her such relief as the court deems equitable and just. D, that's the FAFO. That is the fuck around and find out. That is the find out charges. That is the asshole tax. Chat, do you think this is going to be a very large number? Because I suspect this is going to be an incredibly large number. And I think Karen Reed's attorneys are smart enough to, like, even if they're doing pro bono for her now, maybe put their rate at what Hank Brennan charged the Commonwealth to prosecute this insanity the second time. So that is what they're looking for. And then we are into exhibits. Yeah. I mean, the litigation, I should embiggen myself at this point because we're done with the document. Let me swoop and let us embiggen. Let me swoop. We'll summarize a little bit. I'm going to give a rough, very rough estimate of the bare bones minimums of what we're looking at for costs and fees on this. Given that it was two trials, multiple attorneys. I hit the button before I said swoop. It's been that kind of night. I mean, this is my job, right? Is invoicing for attorneys. We're in the millions. We are in the millions before we get to the find out part, before we get to punitive damages. We're already in the millions without batting an eyelash. Also, let's not forget it's in the millions plus a freaking brand new Lexus, because let's not forget that they took her Lexus, then destroyed her Lexus, and then didn't give her Lexus back for a while. I don't even know if the woman has her phone back yet. If because these are cost, fees, damages, that kind of thing. So millions plus a Lexus, preferably one that shoots off into space randomly. I feel like she deserves the space one. Mom coming in with 10 million. Yeah, yeah, we could be looking at that. And again, before we get to find out damages. So, and I think she has a case. The other thing is, with all of this happening, now that this is coming out, and this is massive because he didn't delete his iCloud. Corey Richens did a better job of covering her tracks. Brendan Banfield is probably shorter than Proctor, and also that's a law nerd thing, because if you know, you know. But yeah, no, he and Banfield covered his tracks better. You're a police officer. Like, I kind of love that he was this stupid. I kind of love that he was this stupid. It feels a little like divine intervention. It feels a little all right, I'm gonna go hippy dippy woo woo, which nobody involved in this case would agree with, but it feels a little like John O'Keefe was like, oh, y'all are never gonna figure this out. Okay. Yeah, no, don't delete your iCloud. Like, no, you don't get to do that. No, you don't get to, like, let's get the real story. I will leave you with this. I think I've said it before on other things that I'm curious to find out if I'm right, because I have my own semi-insane theory based on what I've seen in court as to what actually happened. I don't know if anybody's ever gonna be able to prove it, but they seem to be real bad at covering their tracks in certain areas. So, we don't know everything that's in the, like, 40,000 pages or whatever it was of text messages. Um, my personal theory based on actually watching the documentary of Trial 4 and what people testified to as far as John O'Keefe's character and what people have testified to in the, like, not legally testified to, but how they've described him in the documentaries, how Karen Reed has described him. It it gives off the vibe that he was a good cop in a group of bad cops. And so my personal question, again, I need to look at the dates as to when Birchmore was killed. Or others. I mean, these guys are so bad, it could be just about anything, but it honestly, my conspiracy theory, odd, this is what I think happened, with not enough evidence to corroborate this, so this is pure speculation. I think John found out evidence. I think I think John found out about something that these guys did. And whether it was an accident that went too far or it was intentional, they went to teach him a lesson, and he did not survive the lesson. We'll see. This is now filed, and this is amongst the 4, 5, I don't know. Everybody's suing everybody, plus there's still a couple criminal trials. So that is where we are at here. I think there are other filings with that is where we're at here. Swoop. Swoop. Swoop, and then I'm gonna say goodnight. There are other filings, I think, in the Patty Patagonia case. I haven't had a chance to look at those. I might get a chance to look at those on Monday. We will see. Huge shout out to my work friends who end up seeing this, who may end up seeing this. You guys are awesome, and I really appreciate the offered help with sourcing documents. It makes me very happy. So anyway, Karen Reed is heading to court yet. I mean, Karen Reed just kind of lives at various courthouses in Massachusetts at this point, I think. So that is happening there. There are a multitude of other cases. I think there's other filings with the Patty Patagonia case. We'll circle back on that later because well, the court moves slow on a good day, and we're far from a good day. So before I say goodnight, chat, I'm gonna need you to let me know in the comments. Let me know if you want me to do live coverage of the Maine primary on Tuesday. I can buckle up and do it. Also, if you do want me to do that, if you can send me your preferred news source that may or may not take my stream down, that would be great because there's usually music and they usually get very cranky about that. So let me know if you want me to do a live show or if we just want to catch up next week on Saturday. And obviously, we'll catch up on the latest round of primary season. And who knows if there are any sightings of the president who seems not with it anymore. I don't know. We're also approaching the UFC insanity there. There's a lot happening. But let me know if you want live election coverage from Maine that evening, and I'll figure it out. Have a wonderful evening. You guys are amazing. Thanks again for everything. As always, if you just if this is fun, double check if you're subscribed. You may not be. You may think you are, and then you're not because YouTube gets weird sometimes. Um, Share this if it's your kind of thing. As always, let me know what you want me talking about. Find me over on Threads, Instagram, those kinds of places. Let me know what you want to chat about with me, and that helps me set our docket. Docket's just a better word. I've tried to find a different word. Docket's a great word. We're going with it. Um, our docket for the evenings here. Is that everything? I guess it must be. I don't know. Have a great night. Have a great rest of your weekend, everybody. You all are amazing. As always, be well, do good, and remember to bark a lot. I will see you on the next one. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Bark a Lot. Follow me on Threads and Insta at the Aurora H. White. That's where I post most frequently between shows. Hit that like button, connect with us, and remember to bark a lot. We will see you next time.